Hello.
Hello.
My name is Dominic, Mr. Kirk. It's lovely to have this conversation with you. In the interest of time, I have 3 questions for you, and it has to do with January 6th. Okay. So the first question is: do you acknowledge or believe that Trump incited violence?
No.
No. Okay. Do you acknowledge that Trump waited 187 minutes before he said anything to the protesters to go home
That's
peacefully?
debated. Yeah.
Okay.
Because remember, the instructions he gave were to peacefully and patriotically march. Remember
Sure, but
that.
he also said to the protesters, the speech, I think it was at the Oval, or I can't remember what it was specifically, but he also said
Make
to
your
fight.
voice heard is what he said.
Right, but he also said to fight like hell or you're going to lose your country.
Right, but I think we both agree. Time out. Kamala Harris's phrase right now is "when we fight, we win." So fight is a open-ended term. Do we agree with that?
Sure, yeah.
Okay. Kamala Harris, literally the DNC, had a big thing that said "when we fight, we win." So telling somebody to fight, we shouldn't. That's a little bit ticky-tack, right?
Sure, yeah, I would say they're different contextual
For sure, but
situations,
just you can't emphasize that word. But third question on that you had?
Third question, do you acknowledge that many of Trump's staffers, including Donald Trump Jr., were begging him during those 3 hours to call off the protest or stop the riot?
I don't know. That's going to come out. I don't think so, though.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Yes. Yes.
Okay. Do you mind if I film?
Without a doubt.
All right.
There's cameras everywhere. So.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Kirk. Would you sign this for me really quick?
Okay. Great. Yes. What is this? Is this a pic?
It's the poster from your booth.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Go ahead.
All right. Okay. Sorry.
I signed Xi Jinping's face.
All right. Thank you so much.
Great.
I just have one question for you. Would you mind answering? What is your thought on the new Minecraft movie trailer?
No idea what you're talking about. Thank you.
That's it?
Thank you. Next question. You're not
I'm
even
sorry,
a good
Mr.
troll.
Cook.
Next question.
Thank you, Mr. Kirk. Thank you.
First, I'll start with the fact that I don't agree with affirmative action. I agree it's kind of wrong.
Try to talk right into the mic here.
So I have a question about the underlying issues that the other girl mentioned, the socioeconomic statuses of different people from different groups. And I just wanted to ask you why you think that underlying issue is still a problem in America and how we should solve it.
The biggest issue is lack of fathers, and no one wants to talk about it. Mm-hmm. So let's take the black community. 75% of black youth will grow up without a father around. And that we have spent tens of trillions of dollars on social welfare program. It's not a matter of stuff. It's not a matter of having access to care, from welfare to housing, urban development to Medicaid. We've spent more money on the Great Society project than ever. It's a matter of values. And if you do not have a strong father around imparting those values, saying no, and teaching discipline, especially to young men, then you're going to have a major cycle of violence and poverty and despair. And so that's what makes us as conservatives different than liberals. They think it's a material problem. They think, oh, just give more stuff and you're going to break out of poverty. We've tried that since the 1960s, Great Society. We've spent $25 trillion to try to eradicate poverty, and we have more poverty than before we started. It's because we subsidize single motherhood and dads aren't around. It's a major problem.
Is there proven correlation of that, like statistical record?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, well, first of all, it's rather common sense, right? It's rather self-evident that if you don't have 2 parents around, but every major study shows, the Brookings Institution is the best that's done this, which shows that if you have a mother and a father around, stable, you are far less likely to go to jail, graduate from high school, have a higher wage, every possible outcome that would be considered to be desirable.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Can I lean for a selfie?
Yes. We're out of hats, I think. Yes, next question.
So I'm a gay conservative, and I just want to kind of ask you, what do you have to say for people like me who kind of feel like, I guess, it's kind of hard for gay conservatives because there's not a lot of us. So, what do you have to say to other gay people who need to realize, they do have a choice?
Yeah, first of all, welcome to the conservative movement, but I want to be clear, I don't agree with your lifestyle, and I don't think you should introduce yourself just based on your sexual attractions.
No, I agree. I like
because that's not who you are.
I like to be thought of as a person, and
for sure,
I'm not.
I think you're actually way more interesting
so.
Based on your sexual tendencies, right?
Yes, I completely
so I think
agree.
we should get away from this idea that your identity is based on your bedroom behavior.
Yes,
you are a complete human being, and I'm sure you treat people well, and you're studying something. So I want to get away with this idea that you're gay anything, right? First, you should say, I'm a conservative. I also have, same-sex attraction. That's fine. I just think that we have gone a long way in the negative direction in this country, where we act as if the most important part of your identity is what you do in the bedroom. It doesn't mean that much to me, but if you ask from a perspective as a Christian and conservative, I don't agree with that lifestyle. But politics is about addition and multiplication. I imagine you agree with a lot of what we talk about.
Absolutely.
Right? Strong borders, strong country, and for that, we welcome you into the conservative movement.
Thank you. Could I get a hat?
Yes, you can. Absolutely. Yes.
Hey, Charlie.
I'm talking. Yes.
Yeah. So I saw in a video the other day, so a little kid came up to you and he said, "Oh, I heard you said that the Civil Rights Bill should," and I was just kind of wondering, and then you said no. I said it was a mistake. I was just kind of wondering if you could maybe.
Yeah,
I'm
for
it was
sure.
taken out of context, or maybe.
No,
it
I
was,
just didn't want to debate a 12-year-old at the DNC,
I'm
honestly.
sure, and I was
So
wondering if now
look,
we have the
I
time.
was like, it's not.
Yeah,
It was a 12-year-old
Now we
comes
have
up,
the time,
and he
yeah.
was super sweet, super nice. I'm like, I'm not going to debate you. Like Mike Lindell ended
Yeah.
up debating him. It was a disaster. So, yeah, look, very clear. Of course, we needed to end evil segregation. The way we did it was with a wide-ranging, over-the-top bill called the Civil Rights Act that has now created the prerequisite of what we now call woke. And so, for example, the Civil Rights Act is now being used to shut down people's business if they have a certain belief on one man, one woman marriage, saying that that is discrimination under the Civil Rights Act. So, of course, my perspective is it should be illegal to actively discriminate against somebody based on their skin color. That's not what the Civil Rights Act only did, though. That's one portion of the Civil Rights Act. There's 9 or 10 components that people don't even recognize or realize that effectively created this massive anti-racist is the term the left uses, monstrosity that is now being used for things that it was never intended for,
But in what,
including affirmative action.
in what's like, can you name maybe a few specific cases where people
for
have
sure.
cited like
Yeah,
using
so
the Civil Rights
for
Bill
example,
something that doesn't relate to
great
it? Yeah.
great question. So Merrick Garland recently, the Attorney General of the United States, recently said that North Carolina and Georgia cannot have voter ID laws, so asking somebody to provide identification when they vote, because it's a violation of the Civil Rights Act. Because they say that it disproportionately impacts Black Americans. So the issue with the Civil Rights Act is not just the action of being of racially segregating or of being racially insensitive or to somebody. It is the impact. So if it impacts a certain group, therefore it's also then called illegal under the Civil Rights Act. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so it most certainly wasn't a mistake, though.
Well, of
Just
course
saying.
it was a mistake. The way it was written, the intent was not,
Yeah.
though.
Okay, but at the time, of course,
I
it was not a mistake.
Yes, it was. The way that it was written.
What people have used it for now, maybe yes, but back then it wasn't a mistake, though, because
but you have to judge the law as it is now, right? So it's like saying, well, the law might have been good 20 years ago.
Okay, but so you did say, oh, I'm against discrimination, but I don't think the
course.
Civil Rights Bill
No.
shouldn't be signed.
So one provision I think should have been passed.
Okay,
So one provision
but it
was
should have.
good.
You're saying it should have been like more
Should
minor,
have been whittled down, and it should have
Okay.
been this massive, overreaching monstrosity.
Okay, thank you, Charlie.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Yes. Yes, sir.
So first off, I'm a Republican, voting for Trump, super excited about that. But there is obviously a huge issue in the country with healthcare prices. And I know Trump had the transparency executive order, but what do you think is the best way to lower costs for families?
Yeah, I mean, this is huge. First of all, you just have to lower inflation more broadly. That's number one. Number two, you have to go after the hospital lobby, where the hospitals are gouging prices significantly. Number three, this is why I'm wearing the Make America Healthy shirt. We have to try to get at the root cause, which is the food that we are feeding ourselves and our kids. We have to get to the fact that we are an increasingly sedentary country. We aren't walking enough. We're not exercising enough. And healthcare costs are exploding because we don't actually address the root cause 20 or 30 years prior.
How do we take on those huge food companies?
Well,
that
the
are
first thing is we
poisoning
should have a real conversation about banning pesticides in when we're making our food. Ultra processed food should not be on the FDA recommended food pyramid, right? This is why I love Bobby Kennedy coming and joining teams with Donald Trump, is that it's his life mission to make America healthier. We have a chronic disease epidemic. Half of all America's kids are chronically obese or overweight. In Japan, it is 3%. It's not because our kids are lazier. It's because we are actively poisoning our kids with food from big ag that we're spraying with all these pesticides, these chemicals. And if you look at the ingredient list of just a Lunchables box, we are basically giving kids the worst thing possible for their metabolism, for their endocrinology. So that I'm more interested in the healthcare conversation that tries to make sure that a 12-year-old doesn't have to get on Ozempic by the time they're 18 years old. And just so you know, they're giving pediatric Ozempic now. for 12 and 13-year-olds. They are now treating obesity as a genetic disorder that you cannot do anything about, and they just want a 12-year-old to now have to take a shot every week to try to curb their obesity, which has all other sorts of very, very negative health implications. So every day, potentially, right? And so how do we solve that? Well, my personal crusade, we have to blow up the food pyramid, that we have way too many carbohydrates in our diet, not enough healthy fats, and not enough protein. Whoever made that was obviously bought by the big ag companies, and you should just say, I'm not going to have any more high fructose corn syrup, I'm not going to have any more processed sugars, and if there are ingredients I can't pronounce, I should resist it. And in the ideal, we should have a government that promotes the question, did God make it or did man make it? Have more foods every day that God made, more so than what man made, and you'll be a lot healthier because of it. So thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Can I get a hat?
Yeah, wear it on campus.
For a Republican Party that prides itself on personal responsibility, protecting the sentient unborn, and free markets, I was curious your thoughts on animal rights, just because the government subsidizes animal agriculture far more than fruits and vegetables and plant foods, which inhibits the free market and ends up slaughtering lots of animals. And animals are also sentient beings like the unborn. So I was curious your thoughts on all of that.
Yeah, so the question is first, is an animal a human?
No.
Okay, so does it therefore have rights?
I mean, we already have rights for animals, for dogs, cats, and even for some
no, of
farm
course,
animals,
but do you get
less.
First Amendment protections for your dog? Can your dog own a firearm, right?
No.
No, of course not. So it's not the same thing as a human.
Yeah,
now,
I'm not saying it
Now,
is,
as
yeah.
a Christian, we're also not allowed to torture or to slaughter. That's in the Noahic covenant and repeatedly out the scriptures. We must be humane in our treatment of animals. But as far, I don't know where you're coming at from this perspective, but some people would say that animals and humans are on the same moral plane. I don't think that's what you're saying, right? However, there is a push, though, to say that we should no longer eat meat because it's bad for the life of animals. We should do what's best for human beings, first and foremost, and it's good for human beings to eat meat. It's good for human beings to be able to eat animals. It's good for human beings to not just eat like this synthetic fake meat that Bill Gates wants to make all day long. And so, yeah, where do I stand on animal rights? I mean, I don't think any living being should be tortured or should be cruelly treated. At the same time, we should always do what's best for human beings and human beings first. So, for example, when there's an environmental question, the question should first be what is best for the human species, not what's best for the trees or for the snake. Those things are important, but it's more important for humans. Does that answer your question? Or
In part is okay if I have a little follow-up.
please, yeah.
I mean, in terms of what rights we give to animals, of course we wouldn't give animals the right to drive a car or vote because it's not relevant to them. But the rights that would be relevant to them are basic negative rights, the right not to be mistreated or killed. And we already have that for cats and dogs, and even cruelty laws on farm animals.
Well, we're allowed to kill dogs. That's not true. We have kill shelters for dogs, right? We also kill dogs that bite their owners and dogs with rabies, right? So if a human being gets rabies, what do? We treat the human. If a dog gets rabies, unless there's like a miraculous treatment, which there usually isn't, right? So you're right. The negative rights, we do have rights to be able to, for better or for worse, because we do not treat dogs and cats as the same moral level because we as human beings have a soul, we have reason, we have the ability to make sense of the natural world. Dogs do not, right? Dogs only have senses. They do not have reason. And so, for example, a dog cannot tell that it's a dog. Now, there's some disagreement about that, but we as human beings can make sense of the natural world. We are the speaking beings, to say differently. But no animal should be mistreated. But to say that animals are not allowed to be killed would be therefore an argument against meat, correct?
Right, yeah.
I'm
and
not saying that's your
I'm
position.
arguing against...
Right, that's very unpopular probably at, UW Madison to get rid of bacon, right? So... I'm just guessing. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I'm bringing this up ultimately is these animals that we kill on factory farms. We kill them pigs in gas chambers. We ground up male chicks alive for the egg industry because only the female hens lay eggs. All these different things is because we view animals on not having enough rights to actually protect their livelihood. I'm making an argument that we shouldn't obviously give animals rights that aren't relevant to them.
For sure.
But yeah.
So,
I think as a
if
Christian-
if you were a dictator, would you say we cannot kill pigs?
No, I think that should be left up to the free market.
Oh, okay.
The
got it.
reason
All right,
I'm
yeah.
concerned about it is the government is spending billions of dollars.
Yeah, I think
propping
factory
up-
farming
yeah.
has a lot of problems, more because of the health of the human that eats the meat, less than about the animal. because it's just not as good for the human. So
But
thank
do-
you. Yeah,
but
go ahead.
Real quick,
Yeah.
do you think ultimately that our Republican Party that is pro-free market should be propping up billions of dollars towards subsidies for animal
I'm not a huge
agriculture?
subsidy fan of things that make people fat and unhealthy.
So would you, if you were in a voting position, either if you were an elected leader, would you vote against, and should Republicans vote against that?
I'm not in a voting position, but yeah, I would advocate for. I'd advocate against most of our current agricultural subsidies for sure.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you.